Hi! In today's episode, we'll talk about one of the most important tools in Photoshop. Without the understanding of it, there is no way to effectively work with the program. I'm talking, of course, about masks. So, grab a cup of coffee and let's get started with the tutorial. Masks are one of the most powerful features of Photoshop. Trust me, you will use them in every project, so pay special attention to this tutorial. At the end, you will find a summary of the most important information, so I highly encourage you to stay with me till the very end. Let's start with a quick explanation: what is a mask and when do we use it? Look, in real life, we use a mask to hide our face or parts of it. Looking at someone in a mask, we cannot see what is under it. But if the mask is made of more or less translucent material, we can see some of the details. In Photoshop, it works exactly the same way. Masks allow us to fully or partially cover a layer and, in the same time, making visible content of the layer below. Simple as that. Oh, and by the way, if you don't know how layers work, I made a dedicated tutorial. You can find the link in the description below. And what's most important, working with mask is reversible. You can edit the mask at any time you want. You can change its shape, opacity, or even remove it completely without affecting in any way the photo or graphic that the mask covers. So we work in a completely non-destructive way. And one last thing before we jump into the program. Every week on this channel I publish new editing tutorial. So if you are interested in this content, please consider subscribing to my channel. I have divided this video into two parts. In the description you will find a time division. The first part is a super quick tutorial which covers the very essence of creating masks. The second part is the extended course when step by step I discuss in details all the aspects of working with masks. And finally, after this long introduction, let's start with the tutorial. Take a look at the first example. Here we have a picture of the sunflowers. The sunflowers themselves don't look too bad. However, let's just say that the boring sky is not quite what we want. Let's swap it from another photo. On the layer above, we have a photo with a much more interesting sky. Let's try combining these two images. In this example, we want to make the top layer visible only in the part with the sky, and the bottom layer just the sunflowers. Let's add a mask to the top layer by clicking on this icon. Choose a brush. The shortcut is the letter B. Make sure you choose a color black. Right-click and set the size and hardness to 60–70%. Now paint over the places you want to hide. Remember, the layer you are currently on is indicated by the white border around the thumbnail. As you can see, the content of the layer below in the stock, our sunflowers, becomes instantly visible. If you paint too much, you switch to white. If you have foreground and background colors defined as a black and white, you can easily switch between them with X key. If you have other scores selected, reset them by pressing the letter D. Use the white brush to reveal parts of the sky that you have masked too much. Voila! Done! If you look now at the thumbnail of the added mask, you will understand what is really going on. In the place where the mask is white, we get complete transparency of the layer it covers. On the other hand, in the place where the mask is black, it completely covers the layer. Now, just to summarize. You must remember the most important rule of masks. White color reveals, black color hides. You add a mask to a layer and simply use black to cover the elements you want to hide, and you're done. Congratulations! You have completed a super quick course of working with masks. Of course, masks give us many more possibilities, and the options are much more extensive, so if you want to deepen your knowledge, we start with the second part of the tutorial. We have here one layer filled with blue. Let's add a new layer to it. Select the ellipse tool, set the fill color to red, no outline, and create a circle with the Shift key held down to keep the proportions. To create the mask for a layer, select it and click on the mask icon. As you can see, a white mask icon appears next to the layer thumbnail. I'll repeat once again. Remember the most important rule of masking. Color white reveals and color black hides. At this point, our circle is completely visible because the mask is white. Look what happens if we fill it with black. With the mask selected, it's indicated by the white border around the icon. Now we have the layer, and now the mask active. With the mask selected, click Alt Backspace or Option Delete if you are using a Mac to fill the mask with foreground color, or Ctrl Backspace, Command Delete to fill the mask with background color. These colors are shown here. If you have any other colors selected, click D to reset them and X to switch between them. We set black as the first color, shortcut Alt Backspace, Option Delete, and our mask fills with black, hiding everything on the layer. Of course, if you fill the mask with white, the layer will be fully visible again. You can hide the visibility of specific parts of a layer by filling in the selected elements of a mask with black. Take a look. For example, using a brush, you can simply paint over the parts of the layer you want to hide. Let's choose a brush and hide the right part of the circle. As you can see in the thumbnail, our circle is untouched, and the mask covers it where we painted it black. You might have noticed the chain icon between the mask and the layer. It means that the mask and the layer are connected. If, for example, we move the layer or scale it, the mask will be edited automatically. Let's go back to the white mask and I will show you an example. I select a brush and click once about the middle of the circle. Now let's switch to the Move tool. The shortcut is the letter V. Select the layer and change its position. As you can see, the mask is attached to it. Even when we resize our circle, the mask will scale proportionally with the layer. Watch what happens when we disconnect the layer and the mask. To do this, simply click on the link icon. Now the layer, as well as the mask, react completely separately. I can move and scale them like separate elements. Look. To reattach the mask to the layer, just click in the space between them. The link icon will appear again. Okay, at this point, you might think that this might be a bit pointless. Why bother so much? Why create mask and switch between tools just to hide a part of a layer? You can just take an eraser and in one stroke remove what you don't want to show. Look at another quick example and you will understand everything. What do we have here? We have a photo of a river flowing between mountains, and on the layer above we have some flying birds. Let's select the layer with the birds and crop it to our needs. Command Ctrl T and resize by dragging one of the corners. Confirm your changes by pressing Enter. With the Move tool selected, let's change the position. Okay, to demonstrate the difference between masking and using the razor, let's duplicate the bird layer. Shortcut Ctrl Command J. As you can see, now we have two layers. Let's label them by double-clicking on the name. Let the bottom one be the eraser and the top one the mask. The order doesn't really matter in this case. Now let's hide the layer with the eraser by clicking on the eye icon. Perfect. Let's assume that there are too many birds for our composition. We only need, let's say 4. We add a mask. This time, instead of using a brush, let's use a different method. Choose a lasso and very loosely outline the birds you want to remove. Fill the selection with black. Shortcut Alt Backspace, Option Delete if you are using a Mac. And the birds disappear. Delete the selection with Ctrl Command D and we are done. Now, could we do the same thing with an eraser? Well, of course we could. And a lot faster. Have a look. Hide the layer with the mask and activate the one below. select the eraser, shortcut is the letter E, and erase the birds you don't need. The job is done. The effect is exactly the same. We wanted 4 birds, and we have them. So if the effect is identical, why did we create masks? Especially that it took us more time. For the purpose of this tutorial, let's assume that this is not the end of the work and we will continue to edit our project. Let's select the layer with the background and add a new one to increase the contrast. Click on this icon and select brightness and contrast. Use the contrast slider to increase it to, let's say, +20. Next, let's add another layer to change the hue. New layer, hue and saturation, and let's play around a little bit here. Alright, now let's add some text. Select the text tool, letter T on your keyboard. In the top menu, you can set the font type, typeface and the size. For my photo, I'm going to choose 300 pixels, and in the next option, you can change the color. Click on this miniature. The eyedropper will automatically activate, allowing you to take a color from any area of the photo. Let's take one of the shades of the water. Click and type birds. Confirm by clicking on this icon. Now we switch to the move tool and we move the text lower. Let's also enlarge it a bit. Ctrl-Command-T combination to enter the transform menu. Okay, now I move it to the middle and confirm with enter. As you may have noticed, when I moved the text, a pink help line appeared, allowing me to position the text right in the middle. If you don't see that line, you can activate it by going to the View tab and checking the Snap option. Okay, I will add an outline to our text to make it more interesting. Double-click on the layer icon. In the window that opens, go to the Outline tab. Set some parameters and choose a color. Click on the thumbnail and again, using the eyedropper, take one of the shades of orange or brown from the photo. Confirm OK twice and we are done. Now we look at our composition and we realize that something is not right. 4 birds are not enough. We could use one more. And this is where you will see the great advantage of masking. We really cannot do anything on the layer where we remove the birds with the eraser. The only option that saves us would be go back to the moment when we haven't erased anything from the layer yet. As you remember, this was at the very beginning of our work. Just think how many steps we took later. Now imagine that situation. You are working with a very complex document, where after the deleting operation, you would make several or even hundreds of steps more. It would be a nightmare. Well, it just won't work. And now I will show you how it works when you use layers with mask. Watch! All we have to do is to activate the mask, select the brush and use a white color to reveal as much as you need. Beautiful! We are working completely non-destructively. We can always hide additional elements under the mask or reveal previously masked ones. On the mask we work with black, white and shades of grey. If you cover the mask with black, you completely hide the layer. But if you paint over it with grey color, you will keep some transparency. Let's open a new photo and add a layer with full color. Let's choose maybe blue. As you can see, the new layer was added right with the mask. This happens with all the adjustment and fill layers we add from the list. Let's select the gradient tool and set it as a linear gradient. Select the mask and drag the gradient from left to right. Hold down the Shift key to keep the line perfectly horizontal. As you can see, where the gradient was 100% black, the mask completely covers the layer. As the percentage of the black decreases, or more precisely, as the percentage of the gray coverage decreases, the mask covers the layer less and less. You can see it well by opening the information window. Go into the window and select Information. The left column shows us the RGB area, the right column the CMYK area. Look, when I move the cursor over the photo with the mask selected, I get no information about any color, only the brightness level changes. Here 100% is pure black and 0% is pure white. Now that you have some knowledge of masks, look how you can work on a mask with a brush. Let's add another layer with solid color. This time red. We hide the blue layer and choose a foreground color. Click on the icon and set hue to 0, saturation to 0 and brightness to 50%. Now, when you paint over the mask, you get 50% opacity. If we change the settings and change the brightness to, let's say, 10%, we increase the percentage of opacity of the mask because we will be closer to black. Of course, it works the same way in the other side. If you set the brightness to 80%, you will be closer to white and the mask will cover the layer with less opacity. Now look at the effect we get by using different brush settings. Let's add one more layer. Make it green. Select the brush and right-click to set the brush hardness to 100%. Let's define the foreground color as black. Click on a mask. As you can see, the mask completely covers the green layer in this spot and it has sharp edges. Let's go with the same hardness and decrease the brush opacity to maybe 25%. Click. The mask still has sharp edges, but it covers the layer only by 25%. Now go back to 100% opacity and reduce the brush hardness to 25%. Click on the mask again. With these settings, the center of the brush covers the mask 100%. But because its edges are soft, the edge of the mask is blurred. You can guess what the results will be if you change the opacity to 25%. The center will cover the mask in 25% and the edges will be blurred. You can change the percentage of opacity very quickly using the keyboard. Press 2 for 20%, 7 for 70, 0 is 100 opacity. You will be using the brush with different parameters very often, so it's worth remembering this information. When you're masking with a brush, it's a good practice to set the default colors and switch between them with the X key. Let's take a look. Let's go back to the example with the blue circle. I will fill the mask with white color. And now I'm going to mask this part. If I go too far, I click X and by painting, restore the hidden parts. So far, I've shown you how to create masks for layers. But remember, you can also apply them to entire groups. Take a look at the next example. Here we have a layer with a city and the moon on a separate layer. First, let's get rid of the black background. I select the elliptical selection tool and create a selection. I hold down Shift to get the perfect circle, and with the spacebar pressed, I move the selection. As you can see, the mask we added to the layer is created right away with the selection. At this point, the mask is white. Let's suppose now we want to add some effects to the moon. Let's change its color, play with the curves, and maybe we'll add some filters. So we add a hue and saturation layer, another layer with curves, and a photo filter. To apply these adjustments only to the moon, we can of course clip them to the moon layer by clicking on this icon. We can also copy the mask several times to each layer, but we can also place all layers into one group and apply the mask to it. Select the layer with the moon, hold down the Shift key and click on the last adjustment layer. Create a group using Ctrl-Command-G. Open the group and hold down Alt Option and drag the mask to the group thumbnail. Now all the changes made within the group will affect only the added moon. Look, we change parameters of individual layers and only the moon is affected. Of course, all the effects can still be masked separately with masks created with them. Remember that if you now want to transform the moon, it is best to do it using the whole group. Okay, now it's time for some useful tips. If you want to hide the mask for a while, click on it with the Shift key held down. As you can see, mask is crossed out with a red X. Clicking once again will restore the mask. Second tip, if you want to reverse the mask, so make what is visible invisible and vice versa, with the mask selected, press and hold the Ctrl Command key and click the letter I. Third tip, to see super detailed mask areas, click on the mask icon with Alt Option key pressed. Boom! Now you can see everything in black and white. Clicking on the layer restores the standard view. Tip 4. If you've created a mask with edges that are sharper than you needed, take a look at the mask settings. If you don't see them in the side panel, select the window and find Properties. Here use the blur slider to soften the edges of the mask to fit your needs. Another tip is copying the mask. Let's add another layer, this time with the color pink. I want to apply to it the mask from the layer below. Select it and with Alt Option pressed, drag the mask to another layer. The program will ask if you want to replace the mask. Of course we do want that, and voila! Done! Sixth tip. If you want to create a black mask that covers everything 100%, click on the mask icon with Alt Option key held down. And finally, tip number 7. Making a selection of the mask areas. If you want to select a portion of a photo or graphic that was not covered by a mask, hold down the Ctrl Command key and click on the mask icon. You will get a selection of everything that is white on a mask. This selection can be easily reversed by pressing the Shift Ctrl or Shift Command and the letter I. And that's it! As you can see, the usage of mask in Photoshop is really huge. It's a very important tool that allows you to non-destructively hide parts of a layer. It doesn't matter if it's an image layer, a text layer, an adjustment layer, or a whole group. You can use the mask to cut out character from the background, create special effects, or, for example, change the sky in landscape photography. You are limited only by your imagination. If this material was useful for you and you want to see more similar tutorials, you know what to do. Click appropriate buttons, subscriptions, notification bells, and thumbs up. If you have any questions, comment section is waiting. That's all from me. See you in the next one. Bye.